Hello, my dear viewers. March 8 has arrived, and in this release, I'd like to focus not on the battle lines, but on the informational lines. Though, why not battle lines? At this moment, the informational front is no less of a battle than the physical front lines. The fact of the matter is, the war is gradually, not even in the borders of Ukraine, but in everything surrounding Ukraine, it's getting a lot of momentum. It's showing us that the world is dividing into two separate parts. There will be two separate worlds. A war is not only on the physical battlefield, but also a war that's in cyberspace, as well as this informational war. And we can see it being conducted in full swing. It's enough to say that today, or rather last night, many oppositional sources were shut down in Russia. It's not completely certain how accurate this information is, however, about Facebook, but word is that it's been shut down, though I did log into Facebook from Crimea, so I don't know how widespread this shutdown is. Nonetheless, it seems apparent that restrictions for content providers and social media are getting tighter and tighter. This is indicating towards the formation of independent informational spheres that are geared towards the populations of either which of these spheres. How this is being done? I'd like to show you to the tune of concrete Ukrainian examples from yesterday. The first example is how yesterday, or rather earlier today, the hysteria being built around the nuclear disaster that could be created at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. The idea is that Russian forces had an objective to take complete control over the nuclear power plant. I'll note that even on the third day of the war, since the start of the war, Russian front lines moved through that area, but then went onwards to their next objectives. Recently, there came new orders to secure the station completely, and with that, the disinformation channels started flowing. The hysteria has grown over the course of several hours with an ever-increasing tempo as time went on. Even an almost sober Zelensky got involved, who declared that to citizens how, right at this moment, the nuclear power plant was being shot at by Russian tanks, despite the fact that there was live coverage of the events at the power plant being aired on news channels. Security camera feeds were publicized, and this clearly contradicted the president's words. So it seems pretty apparent that even the president of Ukraine is releasing fake statements in this disinformation campaign. And as things became more apparent in the morning, no dangers to the atomic stations ever existed, or could even be assumed, not even close. Nonetheless, official Kyiv sources were making statements of Europe's worst nightmare, the second Chernobyl, and well, we know why they might do that. The second example is no less exemplary. You know, I've been constantly getting messages since Kyiv's propaganda arm gave the command to all citizens to attack alternative media sources. I'm being bombarded with video clips and stories of how, see, you're the one who's lying, and here's the truth. The enemy is conquered all over, Ukrainian forces have pushed the enemy out towards the borders and are chasing them out of the country. You know, I took a while to understand how Ukrainian television manages to stoke this hysteria and confidence in victory. A swift victory, nonetheless. Then when I checked out one of those clips from the channel TSN, I came to understand how they manage it. It's so decrepit that it doesn't fit any narrative of what's happening. To show that the enemy is defeated and pushed back in every direction, journalists have literally started changing geographical locations of cities. Don't laugh, I'm serious. Just take a look at the screen capture from yesterday's evening release. TSN affirms from their Ukrainian government sources that Russian battle operations are being held around Lozova. The Lozova is at the southernmost point of the Kharkiv region. So that's the Russian unit south of Kharkiv, threatening to cut off the Donbass group from the Ukrainian mainland. So not to expose this threat of losing this tactical advantage, journalists simply moved Lozova on their maps somewhere between Bogoduhov and Akhtirka. So somewhere in the northwesternmost region of Kharkiv, shifted by several hundred kilometers closer to the Russian borders. And in that fashion, the official news from the Ukrainian military looks pretty good. The enemy is at Lozova, which is pretty close to the Russian border anyways. Can you imagine what kind of depravity it is in Ukrainian hysteria propagated by these Ukrainian channels? They're moving entire cities to paint a narrative that everything is going according to plan, banking on the fact that citizens are so dumb that they don't even know where Lazava is located in the Kharkiv region. And I'll note that this news isn't geared towards a European or American audience, this is for Ukrainians. And the scariest part is that there are many that still believe in these flaming garbage heaps. They see genuine bullshit, but decide they decide to believe it anyways because they're afraid of knowing the truth of the matter, and are doing everything in their power to shut that truth up. Speaking of which, pay attention. Maybe there's something I missed. If I did, let me know. The hysteria around closing down alternative media sources is coming from Kiev. I take particular pride that I'm at the top of some of these lists, by the way. This hysteria is coming all over from Kiev. I haven't heard a single call to action from official government sources in Kiev. These news outlets. Well, here's the thing. We have no reason to lie. Our opponents, on the other hand, are lying to no end. And to keep control over this fake narrative they're putting out, well, they gotta shut us up somehow. Sooner or later, though, citizens will question, what the fuck was that? Is Lazava really located between Bogodukhov and Tirka? Not south of Kharkiv? Even the people fighting with these shit-slingers on the informational front, by the way, aren't calling for these sources to be shut down. We're just calling them out for their BS directly. And that's fueling the hysteria even more, crossing all realms of reason. How are you supposed to call it, though, if a populated city is conveniently shifted 300 kilometers northwest? That's all I wanted to say in this release. In the next, I think, will be an update from the front lines. Not sure how I'll manage to record it with my tight schedule today, but by 1 o'clock I'll do my best to get it out for you. That being said, that's it for me. Subscribe and stay tuned for updates.